What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today Daniel Jeremiah just dropped his mock draft 2.0, so we're here to review it and continue it for a second round. Yes, it is Mock the Mock, then what? My little twist on a very popular series. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. Below my face is my board. It is ever changing because the more tape we watch, the more informed we get. Also below that are all the great ways to get involved in the community, as well as taking advantage of our two sponsors of the show, Olipop as well as UnderDog Fantasy. Feel free to use those codes, make yourself some money, get yourself some good drinks, or just enjoy yourself. Let's get right into this. Let's have a great time. So we're going to need to plow through this because we do have legitimately a second round that we are going to do. This is unfortunately not a live reaction because I have to, be able to load up the mock draft for us to be able to continue it on, but let's just say I have a lot of opinions on this. DJ is an amazing person. He's actually the person who I want to eventually become. Like, that is the vision for what I would want from myself and the growth of the show, is to essentially be the next Daniel Jeremiah. So super cool about that. Hoping to meet him one of these days, of course. Being there at the Senior Bowl, he doesn't really go out, so couldn't really meet him at the bars. One day. Let's continue this. Let's have some good time, though. Let's get some good talking in. Starting out with the number one pick, Chicago Bears go Caleb Williams. Of course, this is going to mean that Justin Fields gets traded. So between you and me, this is going to be a trade to the Steelers. I'm actually sending the second round pick because I think that's what Chicago is going to go for, because I think they want to replace their second round pick. And that's going to be what affects this mock draft. The Steelers right now minus 120 on the odds, which means that they are extremely in favor of being able to get Justin Fields. Justin also follows the Steelers, but not the Bears on his Instagram. Kind of feels like it's moving that way. Apparently, there is some rumors that it will happen at the Combine, because a lot of trades do happen at the Combine. Aren't really announced until after, though. So, wish we could have went to the Combine this year. Didn't end up putting in my credentials in time, so that's on me. But I want the show to also garner enough attention by the time that we do go, so that it's not really first introductions when I am over there in Indy, but that is a vision for the future. Regardless, that is going to be the trade in this. I love Justin Fields. I've been a Justin truther for a long time, and Caleb Williams I still think is better. I mean, it's financially very responsible to not pay a quarterback that is yet to fully ascend into his best version of himself, especially on a team that I think is ready to make that push. I'd rather take someone who is at least on the level of Justin at the moment, which, again, I think Caleb's a little bit above, even from a Justin truther myself. Like, you're going to be getting similar, if not better, talent level right away. And then you also have all that extra ceiling to go. So you're going to have that same day one impact that you would from a essentially 4-year starter and have a much cheaper contract. So it allows you to be able to fill the other gaps with proper free agents. And it's just so much better on the team overall. Caleb Williams is the correct choice, especially if the Bears get to have that second round pick. It's best for Justin. It's best for the Bears as well. At pick number 2, the Washington Commanders go Drake Maye. Drake Maye has some jaw-dropping passes that I absolutely adore. He also just needs to work on his consistency a little bit. That, to me, scares me because I think the NFL is more about limiting the negative plays than just getting the big positives. Unfortunately, even if you have like 3 or 4 big time throws a game, it really could be the 2 to 3 turnover worthy plays, which I'm not saying that's the ratio for Drake Maye, but I'm saying in the NFL, the inconsistent ball placement could turn from a college normal incompletion or a normal adjustment to an NFL turnover worthy play or interception. I think Drake could rise to the occasion. I do have faith in him to have that level of success. Even though he is 21 on my big board, that's because I don't have faith in every organization getting the most out of Drake Maye. Granted, I could pretty much say that about every player, but I think the inconsistencies make me more nervous about Drake succeeding than some of the other players. But in the right system, I think Drake Maye succeeds. This might not be one of them. Unless you can address offensive tackle properly, I just don't like the fact that Drake Maye is going to be taking contact a lot because the offensive line's not good. And also your defense is not going to be on the field that much because the edge rushers aren't very good. So they're going to pick apart the defense. This draft is going to be very indicative. Of course, I'm not saying it's true of both quarterbacks here, Jayden as well as Drake. But this is a comment on Washington in general. Just you're losing a lot of potential in your receiving core, in your backs, in the whole entire secondary. That you have a first round pick in Emmanuel Forbes who's struggling, but the best way to help a struggling corner is to get good pass rush, right? And the best way to help a struggling quarterback like Sam Howell is to get a good offensive line and get a good run game going. I think the Washington Commanders would be very smart to trade out of this spot. I don't think it happens, but I think that would be the smartest thing to do. You need to be able to address the offensive line and the defensive line. The first round is great for both of that. I would suggest trading back with a team that is dying to move up. You need more draft capital to fill those massively valuable positions. You're not a quarterback away. I hate to say it. You're not. I love Drake Maye, and I think he should go to a team that really can use him well. Trade it away, get some good draft capital, and then build your franchise from the ground up, because Sam Howell is a potential starter caliber quarterback, and he has the potential to be something really special too. I don't think we're factoring that in enough. I'm not saying DJ is not doing a good job here, because this is the logical choice, but this is my 2 cents on what Washington can do. At pick 3, the Patriots go Marvin Harrison Jr. He is still my wide receiver 1. I am dropping my wide receiver rankings tomorrow. I did have it ready for today, and as soon as I was about to record, DJ drops his mock draft 2.0. I'm not going to stop myself from being able to review that. Unfortunately, we'll just have to wait one more day. But very proud of that. I actually didn't realize that my previous rankings were not in the proper format. I used to just do strengths and weaknesses. I'm like, no. I started my whole entire YouTube show because of the positional rankings from that franchise guy. I'm an analytics guy, so I should be giving y'all the analytics, and I am. So stay tuned for that. Very excited for that. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is still my wide receiver 1. He's a tied wide receiver 1, fun fact. I think that he is just athletically a little bit limited. He's very fluid. He's a smooth athlete, good route runner. His hands got a little bit worse, of course, when you have a bum for a quarterback. Not necessarily going to be in overdrive mode the way where CJ Stroud's putting it in the right spot, where you actually have a little bit more on the line. It's understandable. So, I'm not going to give someone a pass for, taking the foot off the gas pedal just because your quarterback sucks, because in the NFL, you also deal with a lot of, inefficiencies. And with the Patriots, might be a team where you also deal with those inefficiencies. But Marvin Harrison Jr. still has the ceiling to be a Hall of Fame level player. He is phenomenal. I think that he just had a little bit of an off year. He slipped from generational for me because I am seeing a little bit more of that limited top speed and athleticism. Now, that's not saying that he's going to be relegated as a not wide receiver 1. He is still wide receiver 1 for me, and he's still going to be a wide receiver 1. But I don't think it's as much of a guarantee as I originally expected. At pick 4, the Cardinals go Malik Neighbors. Obviously, I don't believe there's any trades in this, but Malik Neighbors would be a really solid option for the Cardinals. I think getting a nice speed weapon after getting rid of Hollywood, and pretty sure Rondale Moore is going to be up for a contract sooner or later. Or actually, Rondale Moore has one more. Hollywood has, I think he's up for a contract. Regardless, you're still looking for one of those guys to be a dynamic wide receiver 1 on the team. Malik Neighbors could certainly be that. He is also tied as my wide receiver 1, which is a big surprise because that was not the way he was at the start of the year, which is why we always track how the guys do. I love being able to see progression. Pick 5 for the Chargers. You go Joe Alt here. DJ ended up putting a little GIF of a for sale sign when talking about the Chargers pick. I do think that Jim Harbaugh is going to potentially move out. And with the idea of potentially upgrading the right tackle spot or tight end, because Brock Bowers is still a really good target, this feels like a potential move out spot. And it's logical for the Chargers. It's logical for other teams where if they want Jayden Daniels, it would be the right thing to do. The Giants then select Jayden Daniels, who ends up slipping to 6. It's a little bit of a surprise, but he takes a ton of contact. He's not the youngest guy in the world. And a couple years ago, he did have one of the highest uncatchable throw rates in college football. Granted, I give him credit because he ended up adjusting and working on his craft, and now he is actually a very competent quarterback. But a lot of teams like a quarterback that has a better processor. I think Jayden can definitely work on that a lot. But the escapability is undeniable. There is just a ridiculous ceiling if he ends up getting a little bit more comfortable with the processing of the game. And given the fact that I trust him to work on his craft, that is why he's my QB2. I like the personality and the progression. So that's where we're going from there. But there are some legitimate issues where I could definitely see Jayden being here at pick 6 or at pick 5 and having a team trade up for him. At pick 7, the Titans go Olu Fashanu. Left tackle is definitely a position the Titans are looking to address. Right tackle as well. I think Tali Fuaga, I still don't know how to say his first name. I met the guy in person, and still, everybody else has a different pronunciation for it. So Tali Fuaga is the guy who I would go with for the Titans because I think left tackle and right tackle are available. And I would say this is still an A- move. So, or maybe even A move, because either offensive tackle position is a great move. Some people are going to bring up Rome Odunze here, which, fun fact, I actually am higher on Rome Odunze than I was before. So, got to put that out there. But I still think tackle is the best position because, again, offensive line is the best way to help out the entire offense. And receiver, it's the same thing as the Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase meme. Essentially, if your quarterback has time to throw, NFL caliber receivers can find a way to get open unless you're going up against 1,000 Sauce Gardners, which then that's your own issue. I don't think, regardless of the receiver, you'd be having a very good time with that one. Pick 8, Falcons go JJ McCarthy. We're going to speed this up a little bit, but I still want to just highlight a lot of my thoughts, especially on the top 10. But for me, I'm not there with JJ. He is still a top 64 player for me. He has a ton of positive traits. He does have the it factor. Like, that was something I noted even a year or two ago, is like he has the it factor, but it's just not all there. The Atlanta Falcons would essentially be taking a longer term project with JJ, and I think it ends up working out, but it's going to be a while. And at least Bijan Robinson fans will be able to see a lot of Bijan Robinson until JJ's ready. But I am not there with him being a top 10 to 15 selection. I'm just not. Unless you're really comfortable with your job and very patient, which then it could work out. But with one wide receiver on the roster, I think that there is a legitimate need for a wide receiver too, even though there's a legitimate need for a quarterback, but I just trust for a quarterback to be there in round number 2. And I just don't think the Falcons need to push too hard on getting JJ McCarthy. At pick number 9, the Bears go Rome Odunze, who, again, I love Rome Odunze. I don't think he's as guaranteed of a bet as people think. I love his motor, though. One of the best, if not the best blocker in the class. That's not talked about enough. This dude loves to block. Washington does a great job with the receivers learning how to block. And, his ability in the red zone is what I think gives me the comfortability to take him in the top 10, even though he's not a top 10 player on my board. Like, I do love him a lot. Great build, 6'3", 215. Like, the intuition in the red zone, like being able to create space, tracking of the ball, late hands. There's so much that Rome Odunze does bring to the table that is awesome. So I think he would be a really good wide receiver too, who could be essentially the wide receiver 1 for Caleb Williams. I think this would be a great move for the Bears. At pick 10, the New York Jets go Tali Fuaga. At this point, definitely feels like the right move. Even though the Jets are projected to target a tackle in free agency, I don't think that rules out the potential of upgrading at the other tackle spot as well. Pick 11, the Vikings go Dallas Turner with 3 edge rushers, the top 3 up, as well as so much dead cap. Like, I'm trying to make the Minnesota Vikings deep dive right now, which it should be out also this week, which is going to be sick because that series takes a lot of energy to do, especially with like learning how to do cap. I got to admit, that's my biggest weakness. I don't understand the cap that well, so I try my best. But y'all's cap situation is awful. Like 28 mil because of all the dead cap remaining. There's going to be a lot of restructures, and eventually, there's a time where you can't stretch it out anymore. And 3 edge rushers down, quarterback down, like, it's not good. Dallas Turner is probably your best bet at this moment. He's my number 4 player in the class. He's a phenomenal edge rusher, learns to do speed to power so well. I think he'll be roughly about 250 at the combine, which we'll be able to see very soon, which means he'll be at least a little bit larger, but crazy athlete with a ton of potential. And that's exactly what you need when you need to have an edge 1. Same thing with Jared Verse. Couldn't go wrong. Honestly, I'd be willing to flop both these picks and be perfectly happy with either order. Denver Broncos end up selecting Jared, though, since he falls into their lap. I do think that edge rusher is the smarter decision over corner if you want to keep Patrick Surtain. I think having Terry and Arnold be the selection would signal that it is almost a contingency plan in case Patrick Surtain wants to get traded. We'll see about that. But Jared Verse is a phenomenal player. You cannot go wrong with selecting Verse. Terry and Arnold, speaking of, goes to the Raiders. If you like, I highly recommend not forcing a quarterback because it just means you will have to spend another high pick on a quarterback another year. Terry and Arnold's almost a guaranteed bet. This guy's going to be a superstar. I have a very strong feeling he's going to be a top 10 selection. Just there's not many guys who have that field awareness and flexibility and also athleticism, fluidity. Like Terry and Arnold's a superstar. I love him to death. Him and Ennis Rakestraw are both top 8 players for me now, and I'm debating pushing them up into the top 5. Like, just, I'm a corners guy. I mean, I gotta admit, it's just one of the things. He's super young as well. Terry and Arnold's gonna be a star. If he's here at 13 for the Raiders, that's a home run hit. Pick 14 for the New Orleans Saints, they go J.C. Latham. You know, they need to have a contingency plan for Penning. I do know the right tackle spot as well with Ramczyk is potentially up in the air after probably next year, because I do believe that Ramczyk said he's coming back for a year, but that dude's been dealing with some injury issues as well. J.C. Latham is the right choice for New Orleans. Colts go Nate Wiggins. Of course, with Brock Bowers on the board, it's very hard to believe that they would be resisting that potential option for Anthony Richardson, but Nate Wiggins is an amazing player. Very smart, very similar to Terry and Arnold in terms of their understanding of zone coverage and the field itself. I love being able to take high IQ players like that. That's why I also love Renardo Green, who we'll see in the next round. But if the Colts end up passing on Brock, yeah, I'm going to be a bit salty. But at the same time, Nate Wiggins is a really, really good player. So it'll be some sour grapes, but at least you don't actually lose out on getting a really good player because Nate Wiggins is a very good one. Seahawks go Byron Murphy here at 16. Again, I could say pretty much every single pick from now on would be a good spot for Brock Bowers. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But Byron Murphy is a stud. He could replace Leonard Williams, but also defense interior is still a position I think the Seahawks can upgrade even if they bring him back. Byron Murphy would be a fine selection. He's super young. He's not even 21. And he has great athleticism. He has almost some Jalen Carter to him. And I hate throwing names that are so talented like that out. But I did get that feeling. I did. And essentially, if you want to get a very, 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 very value version of Byron Murphy / Jalen Carter, I would say Mason Smith. I'm surprised he declared for the draft, but Mason Smith has some of those Jalen Carter swim moves in his pass rush. If you want to wait till the 4th round, maybe the 3rd, if you want to get a little ballsy, could be your way to get something of similar potential, but a much lower floor than Byron Murphy, who's an absolute beast. At pick 17, the Jaguars go Quinion Mitchell. Quinion, I think that he's a star. It's very rare to find someone who has the ball skills that Quinion does. The timing is perfect. You just see that this guy knows how to get his hand in the pass lane at the very minimum, if not get both hands in the pass lane and get an INT. My big issue with Quinion, there's 2 things. So one, I got to go to the Senior Bowl, which is awesome. Again, like I will tell you plenty of stories about that as time goes on. But being able to watch Q in person, he is a very good corner. I think that there was the 1 rep versus Roman Wilson, which, he stuttered or he slipped, right? And, the loss, it is what it is, right? You'll lose some, you'll win some. Q's body language after a loss is something I don't really like. Sulking, not really just picking himself up. He needed other people to really pick himself up. Super duper minute nitpick, right? Like that's not going to actually change my evaluation, but it's something that's in the back of my mind. My one actual issue with him, and I brought this up a couple of times on Twitter, I am very, very, very big into watching how corners pursue receivers. Like you're supposed to stay in their hip pocket and you're supposed to remain square to the receiver. Quinion has quite a few reps where I'm seeing his shoulders go past the wide receiver. Not only does this allow the receiver to undercut you, it also just gets you out of position where instead of being here and being able to change directions like this, like pretty much at an angle of this or this, right? when your shoulders are pointed more away from the target, you have to make a greater change of direction, which just, it's minute fractions of a second that could be the difference between a receiver really being able to toast you or being absolutely locked up. I think it's something you can work on, and I think it's something you can improve upon. But it's something I've seen a lot that hasn't been improved over his college career. So that's my long-winded version of talking about Quinyon Mitchell. Still think he's going to be a very good corner, but he just needs to fix that one issue or receivers are going to feast. They really are, and it will suck because it will be the what-if story. Like, what if he just learned how to fix that issue? But at pick 18, the Bengals go Brock Bowers. It'd be ridiculous if he were here, but I don't need to be the one to say that. Even DJ's like, I want to see this happen, but it's highly unlikely. Pick 19, the Rams go JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson. If the Rams want to continue boosting their potential of being able to rebound, building the offensive line is not a bad place to start. I'd recommend going a tackle, but at the same time, you're just getting an absolute dog here in JPJ. Pick 20 for the Steelers, they go Troy Fautanu. You know, not the tackle I would want. I'd want Amarius Mims because I'm a sucker for storylines and, you know, being able to pair up Broderick Jones back with Amarius Mims would be great. And I don't trust Troy Fautanu to be a full-time tackle personally. I think he'd be a great interior offensive lineman for us. I just don't really think Troy's the guy I would go for. You know, it sucks that we can't get Jackson Powers Johnson. That would be the interior offensive lineman I would want. And I know he's listed here as a tackle. I'm not there. And I am there in terms of the talent. I mean, I have Troy as my number 24 player in the class. Like, I think he's great. But, I mean, with Amarius Mims on the board, that breaks my heart. And you'll see why later it really shatters my heart as a Steelers fan. Because we'll be seeing him twice a year. Pick 21, Dolphins go Leatu Latu. At this point, it's very hard to say no. You know, he's a phenomenal player. They've been dealing with injury issues with Chubb and Phillips as well. And Latu is of a similar build. I honestly think Jalen Phillips isn't an awful comparison, even though, you know, Brett Coleman comped him to Aiden Hutchinson, who obviously is a superstar, but it's because of the fact better in a two-point stance, shorter arms, great upper body strength. I think Latu needs to work on his lower body strength because I would love to see a little bit more power generation from the lower body. I think he relies too much on his upper body strength, which is incredible. I still think he could be an absolute stud, but it does slightly bother me. Slightly. He's going to be a really good player, especially if he gets to learn from Chubb and Phillips. I don't think the Dolphins would actually do a bad job by taking that selection. Eagles go Ennis Rakestraw Jr., so y'all know how much I love Ennis Rakestraw. You see it right below my face. He's my number 8 player in the class. I think he is super flexible in terms of where he can play, slot as well as a boundary. I ended up watching Ennis versus a lot of really good wide receivers. This includes Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, and this guy was the best corner I've seen versus them. He was arguably better than Terrion Arnold. I think Terrion Arnold's a little bit better in terms of his field processing, but I don't know if there's a better corner in this class. If you want to press, I don't know if there's a better one than Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I love him to death. Like, this is one of my late risers who I just adore. And of course, it's another Missouri player. It always happens, but I think this is the best move for Philly. I really do. I think this guy's a phenomenal player and deserves that level of respect. At pick number 23, the Texans go Brian Thomas Jr. I'll talk about him a little bit more tomorrow, but I think this would be a really solid selection. I think he's a nice hybrid between Nico Collins and Tank Dell. My comp for him is a better version of Christian Watson. So that kind of explains a lot. But Brian Thomas Jr., he's a very good receiver. He is in my tier 2 of receivers. So that should tell you roughly where he's going to go, but also it will show you how many tier 2 players I have in this wide receiver room. Pick number 24, the Dallas Cowboys go Tyler Guyton. I think this is a phenomenal selection. You can move him to left tackle and then train him up. I personally think Amarius Mims is a better tackle, but this is still far from a bad selection. I would still probably give it an A, if not an A+. He has ridiculous upside and needs mentorship. Tyron Smith is exactly the type of guy that I think would work well as a mentor for him. At pick 25, Green Bay Packers go Cooper DeJean. I mean, could I say it any better? DJ knows what's up. I ended up in my past mock draft this past week, ended up talking about how good of a pick Cooper DeJean is for the Packers. essentially I said that there's nothing better. Like, he really is. This is my dream selection. If this happens, we might get some champagne again. Like, it. To be fair, I made $2.02 on that video and spent $200 on that bottle. But that's okay. That's okay. That is worth that type of vibe. And Cooper DeJean might be worth $198 to the Packers. We'll see. Maybe UnderDog can help us out. So feel free to use the code. I don't know what their betting is going to be for this for the draft, but I would love. I mean, I'm going to lose a lot of money betting on the draft, but maybe we can make some back. 99% of gamblers quit before they hit big, as they say, but it is what it is. Pick 26, Tampa Bay Buccaneers go AD Mitchell. Don't get a gambling problem. I promise you that's not a good thing. I ended up spending $440 during the Super Bowl and lost all of it, but we ball. Pick number 26, though, AD Mitchell to the Buccaneers. I'm a fan of AD. My comp for him is George Pickens with the mentality of Terrace Marshall at LSU. I don't think he runs 100% of the time, but this dude has some dog in him. He really does. And depending on the game that you watch, like all the games, he's going to be a really, really, really good player. But sometimes the juice just isn't there. And that's why I comped him to Terrace Marshall. It's like someone who I know has the juice, but just doesn't always put the pedal to the metal, even when I think they should. And there's other players that have that issue too. But my God, this guy could be a beast. He really can. The route running, just the footwork in general, ridiculous. So we'll talk more about him tomorrow, though. Cardinals then go Darius Robinson, edge rusher out of Missouri. Y'all know how much I love Missouri players, but I do think defensive interior might be the smarter move because there's a lot of really good edge rushers in this class. Granted, none of them are really built like Darius Robinson at 286 unless you want to take a chance on Marshawn Kneeland. But this is Marshawn Kneeland if Marshawn Kneeland works out. So you might as well just get what works out. So I still would give this pick probably like a B+. I still think that would definitely help the Cardinals out. Pick number 28, Buffalo Bills go Chop Robinson. This team doesn't get enough attention for edge rusher because wide receiver 2 is such a massive need. Safety is going to be a massive need. This team, unfortunately, if they want to remain competitive, I don't know if Chop Robinson is the guy to get them there because of that day one impact. But if this team wants to maybe re-sign Leonard Floyd, like to pair up and have like a nice trio here, because I'm pretty sure Von Miller's gone. But if you have at least one seasoned mentor as well as Greg Rousseau, that could keep you in the race. It really can, because Chop Robinson, after a year or two, I think can easily stand up and be that guy and be an elite duo with Greg Rousseau. Pick 29, Lions go Zach Frazier. Interior offensive line is a position the Lions really need. Thank you guys to the Lions fans for, continuing to be respectful as well as coaching me up, especially through your deep dive series. Like Hal Vaitai probably retiring, if not guaranteed for a retirement. Ragnow potentially even going to be, medically retiring soon. And then Jonah Jackson up for a contract. Glasgow's up for a contract. The interior of the offensive line will be massively reshifted, especially if Ragnow decides to retire. It might force this pick. I'm not there yet with Zach Frazier, but I will be getting there, I feel like, because I love offensive line. The Lions could definitely use interior, but maybe a little bit early for me to go that route because I do think this is a good interior class. At pick 30, the Ravens go Amarius Mims. That's why it hurts as a Steelers fan, because my dream player ends up going to a rival. But the Ravens definitely could use a good boost of youth and potentially health, even though Amari's dealt with some injuries. They're just getting best player available. It's what the Ravens have been doing. So there you go. Pick 31, Niners go Graham Barton. Just being able to get a dude who will work out is kind of what the Niners need to do. He's a dude that will eventually work out. So they're just going to continue the train of absolutely baller offensive linemen on their team. Granted, I haven't fully agreed with what they've done recently. They've gone after, Aaron Banks. I wasn't a huge fan of where they got him. I like the idea of him on this team, but the fact is you have someone who's extremely flexible in his role, who's athletic, who's used to playing and wearing multiple hats and playing on the move. That's great for the Niners. Pick 32 and ending off the first round before I'm taking 30 minutes to do this. So this draft means a lot. But Troy Franklin, he's a beast. I have him as my wide receiver. Well, I guess you can see he is my wide receiver 5 at the moment. And he's really, really good. I think he'd complement Rashee Rice very well. Essentially, he's going to be an MVS replacement. So let's get right into the draft. I already know how many comments I'm going to be getting saying I'm talking too long. It is what it is. I love you guys. I'm willing to, put my money where my mouth is. And sometimes going too deep into explanations allows you to be able to see some thought process, maybe point out some flaws. But regardless, this is an easy first pick for me. Let's get a wide receiver 1 for the Panthers. I love Keon Coleman. He is my wide receiver 3 officially. Really good receiver right there at that beginning of tier 2. But he has a true X build. I think that there's just prospect fatigue at this point. Pick 34 for the New England Patriots. We're not going to be doing trades apart from that Justin Fields trade because this draft didn't have trades. But Justin Fields is traded to the Steelers. Just have to say that again. But with going after a wide receiver in round number 1, you still need to get an upgrade at quarterback. Tackle as well needs to be at least checked out. And I just don't trust Jordan Morgan to be a true tackle. Kingsley is a little bit too much of a development piece. I'd go back to free agency for the Patriots because I think the need at QB is just a little bit more. I have Bo Nix above Michael Penix. Both of them have their respective strengths and weaknesses. But with Bo Nix using Troy Franklin so well, I feel like he could actually use Marvin Harrison Jr. in a similar way and be able to get really good production out of him. At pick 35 for the Arizona Cardinals, Jerzon Newton fell into our lap. You got Darius Robinson, Jerzon Newton, as well as, Kool-Aid McKinstry is almost impossible to pass on. This is a good problem to have. Kool-Aid McKinstry, this DB core does need a true alpha in its secondary. There's a big drop-off after Kool-Aid, in my opinion, as well. Well, it's Kool-Aid and Renardo Green, and then it's a drop-off. That's like impossible to pass on Jerzon Newton. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it because I think that pains me. But Kool-Aid really is that superior of a product, in my opinion, for the secondary. So Kool-Aid McKinstry going to Gannon, it really is a perfect fit, in my opinion. Pick number 36, Commanders went after Drake Maye in round number 1. Here in round number 2, you do need to go after offensive line. Kingsley could be eventually kicked into guard. Some people do have that concern with him, but this is also a team that could use an upgrade at guard. I think it's worth taking the risk, even though Braylon Trice is on the board and, he's getting a reevaluation very soon. I think tackle is just that important. At pick 37 for the Chargers, they went after Joe Alt in round 1. Let's continue fixing the D-line. The defensive interior has not been fully solved, and it's hard to imagine passing on Jerzon Newton. A weapon definitely is possible there, but it's almost impossible for me to say no to Jerzon Newton and his ceiling there. My number 14 player in the class. At pick number 38 for the Tennessee Titans, went after Olu in round number 1. I would want, that's actually surprising. Jermaine Burton, I used to be the Jermaine Burton guy. He fell on my board. Spoiler alert for tomorrow. But, to be fair, the majority of the receivers I like are kind of gone. I'm pretty much down to like wide receiver 8 at the moment. I don't know if the wide receivers, except Ladd McConkey, are really worth it at this moment. I do really like Ladd McConkey. I just don't think he's the guy I would want for the Titans. So I'm actually just going to go after, in my opinion, the best player available, and that's Renardo Green. He is my number 34 player in the class. He is right up there with Quinion Mitchell as well. I think his change of direction needs a little bit of work, but his IQ is off the charts. One of those guys who doesn't get enough love, but starting to. He actually got comped to Desmond Trufant, I believe, by Brett Coleman, as well as another player that I'm forgetting his name from the Texans. But he said Desmond Trufant is also a really good comp for him, which means that there's a lot of respect for him from people who I respect. Renardo Green, one of those dark horse names that you won't hear very often, but he's somebody to keep your eye out on. Definitely a big sleeper alert. Definitely a big my guy. Pick number 39 for the New York Giants. Went after Jayden Daniels in round number 1. Here in round 2, still looking for a receiving weapon. I will still blend realism with my board, but there are particular players that I'd feel comfortable with here that I'm not going to be taking. Like, I used to be comfortable with them. After reevaluating them, not so comfortable. I do think a wide receiver is still in order, but I just don't know if Ladd McConkey is the type of receiver that the Giants are looking for. I'd prefer to wait and get somebody like, Johnny Wilson, who could be a wide receiver one, or, a Darren Waller replacement in the long run. That's where my head's at. But looking at the offensive line choices, you got Christian Haynes here, who I think would be a really good addition. However, with Jordan Morgan having tackle versatility, which I don't know if he actually ends up being a tackle, but the fact that he has experience playing tackle, it at least gives a little bit more emphasis to the player potential. And I love the idea of using him as a guard and then, in case of injury, tackle replacement. At pick 40 for the Washington Commanders, we ended up going after Kingsley Suamataia there at pick 36. I think it's time to go after an edge rusher here at pick 40. This team desperately needs one. You got Braylon Trice, you got Jonah Ellis, Chris Braswell, Adiza. There's really good choices here. Like, you can't really go wrong. I really like Braylon because at 6'4", 274, I don't think there's that many players who are as productive or polished. But, you still got guys like Jonah Ellis who are super under the radar. I'm actually going to go Braylon Trice because I think you need at least one guy to have that physical presence to set the edge. And Braylon Trice is that guy. Maybe KJ Henry could actually develop into a really nice edge too. But you need to have that solidified, massive presence to just actually scare the crap out of teams who lack the proper size and strength at their tackle position. Braylon Trice had 80 pressures this past year, which led NCAA. This dude can be an absolute beast. But of course, re-eval is going to be coming in, and I have a little bit less certainty on the end goal or on the end result for Braylon Trice. Pick number 41 for the Packers. I've seen linebacker go to this team quite a bit, and I've taken linebacker to this team quite a bit. Safeties have been slipping as well. I do think that it would not be a bad idea to look in the linebacking core. Safety number 2 as well would be great. But I'm actually going to look at Junior Colson. He's used to that environment. Obviously, scouts are going to see him quite a bit, having, he's at Michigan, pretty damn close there to Green Bay. So Ann Arbor, Green Bay, pretty damn close. You're going to have scouts who see him all the time. 6'3", 250, excellent build. Not really replicable from any of the other linebackers in this class. He really is that one guy. Devondre Campbell has been inconsistently healthy, and this team does thrive off of a very consistent defense. This is going to be one of my sneaky picks here, Junior Colson going to the Packers. I think he's a little bit more reliable, and reliability, availability is the best ability. And I think Junior Colson will provide that availability that maybe some other Packers players haven't so far. He is my linebacker one of the class, but of course that's very flexible based on this different system. Pick 42 for the Minnesota Vikings went after an edge rusher in round number 1. God forbid Michael Penix actually gets here, because the team will trade up for him most likely, unless medicals don't check out. But he will be here for them in round number 2. I still think they should have went after Will Levis last year, but that was my personal opinion. Michael Penix ends up being the selection here. Love Jordan Addison, though. But Michael Penix will be able to use Jordan Addison very, very well. Now they got Dallas Turner and Michael Penix. Pick 43, Falcons back on the board after going J.J. McCarthy in round number 1. So here in round number 2, you need to go after an edge or a wide receiver. Again, mentioned it earlier, one wide receiver left on roster. I think my next best wide receiver is Johnny Wilson. And that's because Johnny Wilson is phenomenal in multiple areas. I just don't think he complements what the Falcons are looking for in a wide receiver at the moment. I'm going to be looking at the edge rushing group instead. Chris Braswell is just an instant day one hit. This team needs to get someone who's just a little bit more consistent, and I think he's right up in that alley. So Chris Braswell will be the choice. Pick 44 for the Vegas Raiders ended up missing out on quarterback in round number 1. Went after a corner in Terrion Arnold. Quarterback just not worth it here in round number 2, unfortunately, as much as I wish I could say otherwise. So let's just end up getting one of the most freaky players in the class, T'Vondre Sweat. It's 350, 360 pounds, 340, 360, depends on what he'll actually weigh in at. But this guy's an absolute animal. Somebody said he was 380 at the Senior Bowl. I was pretty sure that he weighed in at like 242. But T'Vondre Sweat is an absolute monster. He will be a space eater there, and you pair him up with an elite corner in Terrion Arnold. You might not be getting the exact year that you want with, AOC as your quarterback, but At least you're not going to have to draft a quarterback the next year after wasting a pick on a quarterback. I'm not saying the quarterback's going to fail, but this team is not ready to drop in a quarterback and be good. This team needs a little bit more, like a Tavondre Sweat and a Terrion Arnold. Pick number 45 for the New Orleans Saints went after a tackle in round number 1. Another team that could use a quarterback, but defensive interior also not a bad choice for this team. Instead, I actually will be developing the secondary, however. Surprised to see this safety reshift because Cam Kinchens is a little bit lower on my board than I expected, but he's not even this low. I love Kalen Bullock. Surprised that, PFF has him above him, but, Cam Kinchens, he was almost a top 10 pick. Like, he really could have been if he had a good year. Very smart safety. I think he just needs to build a little bit more confidence. And with 2 safeties back with 1 year left, this is the type of guy you take and you grow. You don't have a 3rd round pick, and we're not trading back. So I think that's the smart move. You're taking 2 long-term investments in Latham as well as Kinchens here. But I think those long-term investments will pay off very well. At pick 46, the Colts are on the board. Went after Nate Wiggins in round number 1. Here in round 2, I think wide receiver is still on the table. Unfortunately, I just don't really see someone who truly complements the receiving core. I actually really like Johnny Wilson to this squad. I just don't know if he actually goes this early because there is some sentiment in the NFL based on what I heard from Steve Smith. Of course, Steve Smith is not the end-all be-all, but I respect his opinions. It's not going to change my opinion, but it is something that I'll keep in the back of my mind, especially when I watch receivers. He said Johnny Wilson can't, multitask. I just think he can't catch. He can catch the most crazy passes known to man, but he'll drop a lot of the easy ones. And unfortunately, he has not developed that. And I think that's a big red flag for a lot of teams that are going to be debating between Xavier Legette and a Johnny Wilson, for example. Now, Xavier Legette is in my tier 3. Also showing you guys a little bit into what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. And I think that is acceptable here at pick 46. I think being a wide receiver 3 behind Michael Pittman Jr., hopefully they re-sign him, as well as Josh Downs, is acceptable. And he's really good after the catch. He's a little bit older, but my big issue with him, my big gripe is this dude does not like to block. And I really wish that he did, because that would push him a little bit up on my rankings, but Xavier Legette will be going in this range. And I think as a wide receiver 3 that will produce like a wide receiver 2, that is acceptable at pick 46 for the Colts. Pick 47 for the New York Giants. Another team that I would have considered Xavier Legette to. We ended up going Jordan Morgan in our first 2nd round pick at pick 39. But at this spot, I do think wide receiver is in order. My only issue is that I still don't see a wide receiver I really like except Johnny Wilson, and I just can't see him going this early. Just with those drop issues, I really can't see it. Like, he has awful drops, and teams are going to be scared shitless of that. He still had awful drops. Like, I got to see him in person. Dude still did not have reliable hands, and that really does bother me. I think edge rusher is in order. I do. Because an edge 2 next to Kayvon Thibodeau, kind of a big deal. And, I really wish that Zizo Jalari ended up being an absolute freak show. I just don't think he's going to be an elite edge 2. I don't think the Giants have an elite edge 2. Adisa Isaac is consistent. He's smart. Jonah Ellis is just a little too small for me to be a true edge 2 on this team. Adisa Isaac is just someone that always knows what's going on. He's always going to be reliable. And I think he beat out Chop in terms of pressures too. He's higher on their board than Chop Robinson, PFF's board, for example. And not on mine, but someone who I have a lot of respect for. I think building through the trenches rather than forcing a need is a little bit smarter of a decision. At pick 48 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm going to look at interior offensive line here with Christian Haynes. He usually falls to this point, but it is what it is. They need interior offensive line help. I think JPJ would have been where they went in round number 1, but they went with Q in round number 1 instead, and Quinion Mitchell, and I am fully supportive of that. If they end up getting Christian Haynes and Quinion Mitchell rounds 1 and 2, it's another situation where I might pop a bottle of champagne because your boy loves to celebrate. It's always fun to celebrate. Why not, right? There's nothing wrong with celebrating. Pick 49 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I actually might go Ladd McConkey here. They went after Brock Bowers in round number 1. You could actually go after Karan Ahmedjadjeh here in round number 2 and develop him as a tackle. Like, kind of. I do also see the Bengals potentially targeting Christian Jenkins to be a really good defensive interior. But with probably losing out on Tyler Boyd, just not bringing back. You could technically also not bring back T. Higgins. I think you do. I think Ladd McConkey, his value is just too good. This guy's a phenomenal player and deserves the respect that I'm going to give him. Just super fluid, just unending motor. Dude knows what's good, and he's going to be a really good player. I'm so sorry to the Eagles fans because that's my dream fit. The Eagles is my dream fit for Ladd. I just totally forgot that the Eagles were there at 50. But that's okay because we're going to end up getting the second best player, arguably the best player for the Eagles in the entire draft. And that's Edgerrin Cooper. He fits Vic Fangio's system to a T. I love the fact that he can also be on the line of scrimmage because I think he is very underrated and doesn't get enough respect for the power that he does bring as an actual on the line of scrimmage linebacker. But he even shows potential as an off-the-ball linebacker as well. He fits Vic Fangio, who didn't have, I don't think, a single linebacker above 230 last year. So size is not an issue, and he's just a really damn good player. So got to show some love there for Edgerrin Cooper. At pick 51 for the Los Angeles Rams, I think TJ Tampa fits the mold that they're looking for. I'm not there with TJ Tampa personally, but I do understand that, the NFL might be. 6'2", 200 pounds, great frame. People think that he's really athletic. I'm not there yet. I continue to watch him and just really not overwhelmingly surprised. And that sucks because I've been a TJ Tampa supporter for a long time. I've shouted him out many times. I want him to be great. I'm not trying to be a pessimistic person by any stretch. Just TJ Tampa didn't surprise me, but I do think he ends up going this high. So it is very realistic. He fits the Rams very well, and I'm praying that I am wrong. Pick 52 for the Chicago Bears. Ended up going after Romo Dunze as well as Caleb Williams in round number 1. Here in round 2, could go Jonah Ellis, just BPA essentially. Center-wise, I don't think there's somebody who is worth it here. You don't need to force a need. With cutting Eddie Jackson, though, I do think safety is in order. And Kalen Bullock is an Eddie Jackson replacement. This dude is my safety number 1. Eddie could re-sign for a cheaper amount, but I do want to change things up a little bit. Kalen Bullock will go to the Bears, who ended up bringing on one of my favorite safeties a couple years ago. Why am I forgetting his name off the top of my head? Safety out of Penn State. I'll remember it probably as soon as I start talking about another team, but it is what it is. But Jaquan Brisker, there we go. See, as soon as I started talking about the freaking Dolphins, that is what pops in my head. But Dolphins went after JPJ in round number 1? No, they did not. They pulled a curveball and went Latu. Jatavian Sanders always intrigues me at this spot. I think he's a great choice. But this team needs offensive line. Ew. Yikes. The value's not there. Cooper Beebe could be. I like Cooper Beebe. I think he gets a pretty bad rap. Could go Karan Ahmedjadjeh and just kick him into guard for the short term. He is a great player. 6'5", 320. Like, he's going to be the successor to Taron Armstead. I want to say Terrion Arnold so badly. I might do that as a gut pick, as something that I would want. I don't think that I'm going to do fully what I would want. If Jatavian Sanders is here and you get a dynamic weapon that at a position has a massive need in a pretty poor class, I think that's worth it. He's been comped to Jordan Reed from Brett Coleman. I'm not there yet, but that's still pretty damn high praise. Pick 54 for the Philadelphia Eagles. We have gone after Anis Rakestraw as well as Edgerrin Cooper. I think wide receiver 3 definitely is on the table. The best wide receiver 3, Roman Wilson's still to be graded. To be fair, I should probably do that before I finish up dropping the video, because Roman Wilson's one of those guys I really do like, and it's just not somebody who really stood out to me as one of my top 15, but we'll go back through and re-eval him. One of those players I do like for the Eagles. And, I got to bring up a couple other names here. Xavier Worthy, I was actually pretty cold on him, but I've warmed up to him quite a bit. He's a good player. I think that he's a little bit overrated, but he's still a very good player. Johnny Wilson is an underrated target to go after because every single time, like a tight end's been 28, you guys have drafted their replacement. And so like Goddard when Ertz was 28, I think Ertz when Brent Selleck was 28 as well. And now Goddard is 28. Could do Johnny Wilson, develop him. That'd be pretty intriguing. But again, drops. So we've gone after linebacker. We've gone after defensive back. There's not really a great position to go at this moment that is properly valued, except Karan Amajaje, because this dude is a multi-year guy to develop. And it does kind of feel like a Howie thing to do, even though I do love Lane Johnson with all my heart. Probably the best move. That being said, if you end up getting rid of Hassan Reddick, Jonah Ellis is not a bad guy to bring into the mix with Nolan Smith. It really is not. This dude has a great motor. His dad's a former first-round pick. His brother was cut from the team. His other brother is doing really well there, in my opinion, in Atlanta. Oh, Mike Sainristil is good too. I'm actually going to go Jonah Ellis. I'm going to go best player available because I think Howie actually might resist being balanced in this draft. And we're going to go after the best pick there. Pick number 55 for the Cleveland Browns. Defensive interior actually is where I want to get some extra pass rush help. With Chris Jenkins still on the board, because I love Chris Jenkins, that's going to be the guy I go. Where do I have Chris Jenkins on my board right now? At pick 40, or at spot 40. Dude probably will actually end up being in the top 30 to top 35, but, 305 pounds, smart, good run defender with pass rush upside. That's exactly what I think the Browns actually need to pair up with Siaki Ika for the long run. Pick 56 for the Dallas Cowboys. They need a 330-pound nose tackle. You had one. We need a run-stuffing linebacker. You had one. What do I do with y'all? Dallas, I do think running back actually might be coming off the board this early. It's one of those teams that has shown the ability to and willingness to draft a running back early. I don't know why Trey Benson is spot 135. That's a little bit over the top. But I think it's a position you could actually wait on. Corner 2 with Kamari Lassiter wouldn't be a bad idea. You could actually kick Kamari to the slot, though, and that might not be a bad idea. Again, center, always on the board. Already got your tackle. Linebacker, now also on the board. Edge rusher, you could try to ponder that idea, but I'm actually going to go Kamari Lassiter. I think that's a smart decision. He's someone who could play slot, who's going to be an understudy for the long run. And now you have Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs and Kamari Lassiter there for the long run. Also, Kamari can shift as a safety, very field aware. I think that's just a really good position to just take the best player available. Pick 57 for Green Bay. We went linebacker as well as Cooper DeJean. At this point, I think getting a boundary corner could work. I could also just go for a pure safety. But I have kind of taken all the safeties I like. Tyler Nubin might go in this range, but he actually probably will test not as well as I expect. Or as I would hope. So, offensive line, not a bad idea here. Not a bad idea. You could develop Karan Amajaje. He could just be someone who you are very flexible with in terms of where you put him. Again, his value at this point is insurmountable for a team that doesn't have actually that many needs. And the corner value, in my opinion, not over the top. I'm actually going to take advantage of this. We're going to get the best potential on the board. At pick 58 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they went after A.D. Mitchell in round number 1. Still think they need to target an edge rusher, but the value to me is not there. I actually will potentially go Peyton Wilson here. Even though there are concerns over his health, understandably so. This guy has a crazy work ethic, great athlete, and this is a dude who could be a true captain of that defense. Pick 59 for the Houston Texans. Would have loved Peyton Wilson. Got Brian Thomas there in round number 1. I'm going to be going after defensive interior here. You got Leonard Taylor. Love that. Rook Arorojo. Love that as well. I think Rook fits the build that you guys are trying to look for. Same thing with Leonard Taylor, to be fair. I don't know why people are that low on Leonard. He was misused as a nose tackle. That's going to happen when you're misused as a nose tackle. When you're not built to be a nose tackle, is that you're not going to perform that well. But when he was not used as a nose tackle, this dude was absolutely electric. I think it was over 25% pass rush win rate. And that shouldn't just be like, oh, okay. That's elite numbers. That's a first round figure right there. And he just doesn't have enough reps to really prove that. But I think this is the team that has enough job security and trust that they're willing to take a swing on somebody who could be a true steal here in round number 2. That's going to irritate people because people are just not on the Leonard Taylor train. To be fair, I was disappointed as well. But that's because they use him as a damn nose tackle. when he's not a nose tackle, he really is special. At pick 60, Bills ended up going in round number 1 for an edge rusher. So Chop Robinson on the team. Wide receiver 2, kind of the position I'd be looking at. Now, I still don't have a lot of faith in the receivers that are here to be a wide receiver 2 on this team. I do think Jalen Polk might end up being the popular option, but I really do like Ricky Pearsall. I think Ricky Pearsall could be that guy that he's right now on that fringe of tier 2 and tier 3. Like, he's not getting enough respect. Technically, his hands are ridiculous, but, contested catch percentage-wise, he's not doing that hot. He just makes the craziest catches. So I think actually Ricky Pearsall should actually go at this spot. It's the end of round 2. It's understandable. He to me is a round 3 receiver, but this is also a team without that luxury of having an early third. I would trade back and get him, but you got to get a wide receiver 2 eventually. Ricky Pearsall could fill that void until he becomes a longer-term wide receiver 3. At pick 61 for the Detroit Lions, went after a wide receiver in round number 1. I'm tripping. They didn't go after a wide receiver in round number 1. They went after a center in round number 1. I think corner is in order here. And the best corners on the board right now are Dwight McLaughlin as well as Cam Hart. I really like Cam Hart. I haven't been able to do the full deep dive on him yet, but I specifically watched how Marvin Harrison Jr. played against Cam Hart. Cam Hart did a damn good job. A damn good job. And he did a good job in the Senior Bowl as well. I got to show some love here for this guy. He's a really good player, and this team definitely could use all the assistance they can at that corner position. Pick 62 for the Baltimore Ravens took my favorite player for the Steelers, and Amarius Mims, in round number 1. Thanks for that. But here in round number 2, I think that you need to replace what you have in OBJ. The current OBJ. Xavier Worthy could certainly do that. He will be your Hollywood Brown. Now, I know that kind of feels a little bit over the top with Zay Flowers having a very similar role, but Zay Flowers to me never was the deep threat. He was the guy who could separate with elite route running. Xavier Worthy is that guy who will cross the field and scare the crap out of the safeties because the guy will run the 4-3s. Jermaine Burton could be that as well, but to me, I think he should be a top 150 player and not a top 64. Malachi Corley, completely different build, 5'10", 215. Dude's essentially a running back, but this is going to be a guy where you get the ball with him in space and he's going to be turning it into a touchdown. Like, he's really athletic and he's really good with the ball in his hands. He's kind of like miniature Rashee Rice. But my only issue is I think Zay Flowers has that role. Jalen Polk could be something special. I'm not there yet with him, but I do think he goes in this range. And if the Ravens are the type to take a faller, 6'2", 204 pounds, feels like a guy that they'd be comfortable with. Pick 63 for the San Francisco 49ers ended up going after Graham Barton in round number 1. I talked about 2 corners that I think are worth it here in round number 2. And actually, that's tough to pass on. That is tough to pass on. With Blake Fisher here, I don't think he's actually that good at the moment. Like, I don't think his talent level is there at the moment, but the potential is. When I watch him, I could see him developing into a really good tackle. And give him to Trent Williams for a year. Just give him to Trent Williams, and then you're going to prosper. Just develop the offensive line. I don't care. Graham Barton, interior. Blake Fisher, exterior. That's my dream for San Fran. Maybe you could get a good corner for him, but I would have went Kool-Aid McKinstry there in round number 1, and then Blake Fisher here in round number 2. And at pick 64 and ending off the draft, we got the Kansas City Chiefs, who ended up going Troy Franklin in round number 1. Here in round number 2, defensive interior, even with Chris Jones, should be the focus. Ruka Roro is amazing. I think that he deserves more respect than he does get. He is a top 45 player for me, so I'm going to select him there for the Chiefs. That is going to be the video. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Love y'all as always. See you on the far side.